favorite baseball team was the Yankees. Like, that's who those people were.
Those are other America's teams.
You guys think they drafted Winovich just to play Thor?
Oh.
Like, do you think Edelman just sort of said, hey,
listen,
in
Chase
a couple of months,
when you saw him at
I'm gonna
Michigan,
Photoshop something.
You knew he was going to be a Patriot. I didn't know he was going to be Thor, but you knew he was going to be a Patriot. You're going to the Michigan game this week,
Yes,
right?
Michigan, Ohio State. Cannot wait.
It's a good point. Jenna Wolfe. He does look like Thor. I don't know the actor who played Thor, or I would have expanded.
I
know
don't
he's a
even know
good-looking
Thor.
man,
I think
long
the
hair.
actor more. Time for stories to start your morning. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in L.A. last night taking on the Rams. Lamar was as good as any MVP candidate could possibly be. Finished with 5 touchdowns and a blowout 45-6 win. Nick, are you surprised that Lamar is this good in year 2?
Man, I was rooting for Lamar. I was bullish on Lamar, and I'm surprised. I thought Lamar's ceiling was, at one point in his career, be a top 6, top 7 NFL quarterback, which is why I thought he deserved to be picked higher in the draft than he was. I never thought he would have an MVP season, and barring him falling off a cliff or Russell Wilson just having a sensational final month of the year, he's going to win league MVP in year 2 like Patrick Mahomes did last year.
I think there are only 2 people on earth who are not surprised, and that's Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh. Harbaugh, I got to give him credit. He stuck with him in that playoff game through that poor performance against the Chargers last year, didn't bench him for Joe Flacco in the second half, and then this year doubles down and bases the whole offense and team around Lamar Jackson. So credit to him. But otherwise, I and everybody else has to be surprised.
Lakers taking on the Spurs in San Antonio last night. LeBron James, so good. Finished with 33 points, 12 in the fourth quarter to go along with 14 assists in 35 minutes of play. Lakers beat the Spurs, extending their win streak to 8 games. And, oh, yeah, they got the best record in the league. Nick, can LeBron keep this up in year 17?
Of course he can. Whether or not you agree that he's the greatest basketball player of all time, he is the greatest athlete. Okay, that's fine. But he is the greatest athlete to ever play basketball, and that is undeniable. I'd say he's the greatest athlete ever, but Serena Williams and Usain Bolt might have something to say about that. We have never had a player in past year 10 average 25 points and 10 assists. He is doing it in year 17, and he's doing it on both ends. Chris Broussard for the best team in the NBA.
And he's doing it in year 1 as a point guard. He's become the point guard and become the best point guard in the league. I didn't think he'd lead the league in assists. I thought he averaged 9, maybe 10. He's up around 11, having a tremendous season. And LeBron's competitiveness gets underrated because he passes the ball. He shares the ball. He's not like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant in his demeanor, but he is incredibly competitive. And I think this offseason, when everybody said he's no longer the best player in the world, everybody said he's going to be 35. Yes, it got to him, and he's showing it.
All right, on to the Blazers and the Bulls battling in Chicago. And Carmelo Anthony had his breakout game. Finished with a game-high 25 points to go along with 8 boards. Blazers win 117-94. Nick, how'd Melo look last night?
Looked great. Was efficient, which is going to be the key word for Carmelo. We know he's not going to be a great defender. He wasn't in his prime. He certainly isn't going to be in his year 17. The question is, can he be an efficient scorer, not just a volume scorer? He was last night, and it was a great moment for him. And important, this would have been a horrific loss for the Blazers, and they probably would have lost without Melo last night.
I'm happy for Melo. Great game last night. But look, he's got to continue. It's not 25 and 8. But he's got to continue to play well, as you said, Nick, efficiently, and help the Blazers get to the playoffs. They should be a playoff team in the West, and he's got to help them get there for this to end well for them.
The Philadelphia 76ers were up in Toronto to face the Raptors. Last time Joel Embiid was north of the border in a basketball setting, he left in tears. And last night wasn't much better. Embiid finishing 0 for 11 from the field, 0 for 3 from the free throw line. So quick calculations gives me 0 points on the night for Joel Embiid. Sixers lose 101-96. Nick, we got to have this conversation about Joel Embiid. Did we overrate him?
Well, where did we rate him? Because going into the year, I said, and I don't have to list them, there was a clear-cut top 8 players in the league, if healthy. Steph was healthy. KD, we included him in it because we knew who those 8 guys were all battling. They're basically, those 8 guys were the guys everyone says are top 5 players. Embiid was the first man out of that. He was, I think, considered a top 10 guy, and
so you had him as the best center.
Well, I had Anthony Davis in the top 8. What is Anthony Davis? But yes, better than Jokic.
Okay,
yeah, better than Jokic and an MVP candidate. A guy that the only person in the East who gave him trouble defensively, the Sixers acquired, and now Horford, because Horford actually could defend him well. And yeah, it's disappointing. And I understand the Sixers have issues that aren't about Joel Embiid. They have not replaced Jimmy Butler's late game scoring, and Ben Simmons continues to be a plague on them at the end of games. He has been awful at the end of games, last night included. Last night, they're down 3. They get the ball. He takes a heave when they don't have to take a heave. Could have gotten a better look with a few seconds left. That's why they ended up losing by 5, was because of dunk in the final seconds. It was a one-possession game at the end. But this game can't happen ever. Broussard, I say this not tongue-in-cheek, but you can speak to it. This cannot happen to a great high school player.
I was thinking that when we talked about it earlier. You're right. High school, college, pro, a great player has. I can't think of one who's ever been scoreless.
The best player on your team, not
scoreless.
Scoreless. You listen. The best players in the league, they score at least double digits every night, except for maybe once a season.
Right.
Like LeBron's got that insane record, 900-some games. Next closest record's around 250. It's because usually about once a year, you have a 3 for 11. You don't get to the line. You have 8 points. It's like, man, it's a terrible game. To go over in a close game, it'd be one thing if it's
against
like
a rival.
Against a rival where you were, like Jenna mentioned, you were devastated the year before. It'd be one thing if it were a blowout. Like they were down 32 at the half. He had a bad first half, barely plays in the second half. It's like, okay, he was 0 for 5, didn't score. It'd be awful. But to play 32 minutes in a one-possession game throughout, a game where there are 21 ties or lead changes, and to not score, I've never seen it happen in the NBA.
It's unfathomable. When I read it, I thought it was, because I didn't see the game.
Thought he got hurt or in foul trouble?
Yeah, I thought it was a misprint. How in the world does a great player go scoreless? I mean, it's unbelievable, but you look at the highlights that we were showing. You can see why a 7-footer would go scoreless. He's taking 3-pointers. He's, handling the ball, taking long twos. Where are the post-ups? Look at this. I mean, that's why you go scoreless as a 7-footer. It's nice that occasionally he can step out and hit the 3. You saw that post up in the turnaround kind of fadeaway 3. None of this stuff is at the rim. And if you're missing shots like this, you have to be smart enough. And look, I'll give Brett Brown credit, but you got to tell him, why hasn't Brett Brown put him down there in the block? There you see one, he tries to make a move, but get him down low, get him fouled at the very least, or let him score. Very few people. Now, Marc Gasol is a good defender. Serge Ibaka didn't even play. Okay? So for this to happen in this game, as far as him being overrated, look, he's still a very good player. I think Jokic is a better center, but he's at least the second best.
Think about how many guys, though, from 2 years ago to right now, though, have leapt him in the hierarchy. Giannis and he were close. Giannis is now worlds ahead of him. Luka wasn't in the league. Luka's worlds ahead of him. Jokic is now ahead of him, right? Like you just said, you think Jokic is better than him. Paul George was not considered better than him 3 years ago, or that he was the direction Embiid was going. Paul George is now undeniably better than him. Kawhi, when healthy, was always better than him. We now know he is. Forget Harden, forget LeBron, forget it's.
His shot selection is poor, and a lot of that's got to be on the coaching staff. He's shooting 45% from the floor. Very few big men can stop him down low. Why isn't he punishing people on the block? That's a problem not only for Embiid, but for the coaching staff. But 0 points is...
And I give the Raptors credit. That not only are they 12-4 post-Kawhi, Lowry's been hurt. You mentioned that Ibaka's out. LeBron had his worst game of the season against them. Kawhi had his worst game of the season against them. And LeBron and Kawhi, both in those games, midway through the fourth quarter, were in single digits, both of them. And Embiid had his worst game of the season against them. And they're long, and they're springy, and they're well-coached. But 0 points can't happen at any level of basketball. And I've never seen it happen in the NBA for a guy who we think one day could be